this is what I've learned over the past year or so working with Unreal. And I happened to buy the advanced locomotion system about a year ago because I didn't want to have to, do all that on my own. And it turns out that locomotion is actually pretty hard, and it took me a while to learn all the intricacies of this system. And now that he's giving it away, or they're giving it away free for the month, please tell me everyone's downloaded all of the stuff that they gave away free.
Yeah, there's a lot of packages available for free right now on the Epic Store.
Yeah, and so, but this is a really good one. I've been using it for a while. I'm not really too upset that they released it for free. I paid for it, but the maker, he's a real cool guy. He's answered a lot of my questions. He's really helped me understand animation in Unreal, and I'm really glad he got the nod. So if you're in Discord, say hi to him. He's a nice guy. He even answered a few questions of mine for this meetup. So advanced locomotion system and you. What it is. It is a set of blueprints, animations, etc. to help your character move around nicely in a believable manner. It's fairly well organized. It's a good starting point for your game, but it's just that, a starting point. This is not a drag and drop solution that you just throw in your game and you suddenly have Halo. You're not going to have that. It does show you how to make a nice, smoothly animated character. I consider it a masterclass in Unreal animation to be studied, used, and modified, but not to be kept as is. And I can get more into that when I do the live demo. And it's free for the month, so I don't know if he gets a percentage every time you download, but I kind of hope he does. What it is not simple. It is not C++, and it's not, like I said, a drag and drop solution for all your animation problems. If you have problems with your animations now, you will have more problems with your animations once you try to put it into this without realizing what it is. And again, I'll get into those lessons as well. It makes the mannequin run, walk, sprint, crouch, aim without a weapon. His head will move around, and this becomes very important later when you're trying to add animations in. And also, I forgot, it does ragdoll. It is networked, but I haven't done much with networking because I'm writing a single-player game, and I turn it off or rip it out whenever I see it. So it does not do attacks, shooting, swimming, interactions, cutscenes, anything other than locomotion. It's exactly what it says on the tin. There is an interaction setup tool that you can buy that it's like $150. It has turning switches and shooting and all that.
And it comes with the animations as well as kind of the states for that. Is that true?
The other one?
Yes.
I'm not certain about all that because I don't have it.
You haven't gotten.
I haven't gotten that one yet, but don't get those two confused because for some reason people seem to have, and they want to know, how do you get the switch to move? This doesn't do that. Also, they're a little bit incompatible from what I understand because when you do a turn, the ALS will do a 2-point turn, whereas the other will do a U-turn. And so you have to work around that. So these are just things to remember when you are trying to splice this into your own project, especially if you're not doing it from the start. Prerequisites. That page full of tutorials and videos on the Unreal Start page or the education page, watch all of those because it uses every last bit of it. All those little things you say, oh, well, I think I'll skip this because no, he uses it and it will become relevant and you will bang your head against the table until you realize that you missed something. Along with that, there are 4 tutorials that are sort of hidden on YouTube. I think he may have made them public now. but pardon me, they are how to put your own character into the ALS. And it starts off, it says, okay, how do you do it with a character with the exact same skeleton as the mannequin? That's pretty simple. But then he moves on to more and more diverse skeletons until you have something that's unrelated. And he uses a low poly character as an example. And it takes about 30 minutes if you know what you're doing to move those characters, to retarget, and to get everything working with base ALS. So, oh, and since then, since I wrote this, there's been a new tutorial that came out on how to hook up this and the weapons component that was free last month. And it's about 90 minutes of how to hook these two things together. But it's also an excellent learning experience and really, sped up my understanding of, well, in this case, the weapon component. So these are all things to look out for. I'll have to find the links for you. What systems are used? They use animation sequences, blend spaces, aim offsets, and animation montages. Now there's a subtle difference between animation blend spaces and offsets. Blend spaces are a source of animation. It has no inputs. It is literally, you tell it when in the animation you want to start walking, and it does the blending. And then the aim offset, you have to have something from which to blend with. And that's the major difference there. I only say that because that, again, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the difference. Runtime systems, slots and groups. Slots, you may know those. Those are various, you can set up pieces of your character to be animated in different ways, such as the upper body, lower body, arms, hands, whatever. And that's a slot. And you can group the slots together for manageability. And notifies, which are events that are triggered when an animation plays, when it gets to a particular part. Blueprint features, it uses event graphs, anim graphs, interfaces, state machines, of course, states, conduits, rules, and triggers. All that stuff that we skipped over the first time when we tried to get into Unreal, and we just kind of put the video on fast forward and tried to learn. Yeah. It makes heavy use of all of that. One thing I learned is that you can have hierarchical state machines. So when you're doing animations, you can put a state machine in your state machine, which is extremely powerful. And I will show you how he uses that and how I've expanded on that with my game, and how I envision my work moving forward. Again, he doesn't force you to work in any particular way. If you want to use montages, one giant montage for each of your weapons to do all of X, you can. If you want to use separate montages for each attack, you can do that as well. It is completely agnostic to how you hold your animation data. It tries to just have hooks for you to place your changes. All of the animations, blend spaces, etc., have little abbreviations in them. There is, 150 to 200 animations in there. So keeping them organized is a big part of succeeding. N stands, so if you have underbar, N underbar, that would be your normal stance. C would be crouched. Left, I don't know why I'm looking on this one. Yeah. Left foot is your aim. Now, I know when you aim, he switches stances so that his left foot is forward. Now, you could switch that, but he just uses left foot. So whenever you see left foot, think of that more as an aim stance. I think LF was either an artifact or it was shorter. Aim offset. So if you have N underbar AO, walking, that's your aim offset for walking. normally. Blueprints all end in BP, but I think everybody does that. And turn, these are your turn in place animations, which quite literally, when you are stopped and your camera view is too far away from where your character is facing, and you are using was it direction controls, he will turn and to face that. And there are two sets. There's 90 degrees and there's 180 degrees for both left and right. The movement is separate from animation. In the video for his demo, you can see the capsule moving around. The capsule moves unencumbered, and the animations do not affect the way the capsule moves. So that makes it a really nice one-directional, unidirectional system. You have 3 gates: running, walking, sprinting. 2 stances: standing, crouching. And you can throw in ragdoll if you want. Movement mode: grounded, falling, ragdoll. The rotation mode I mentioned before, you can switch between your character looking the direction of their velocity. So you can spin the camera around, look at them, get a good look at your character, which is what I want. But normally you want the looking direction. So you know your camera's facing over here. Eventually you want him to turn and face that. And there's also an option to add a delay to that, or you can make him face it right away. Which is kind of nice. These are not things that I thought of before working with this. You know, there's a lot of implementation details about how your character moves and their relationship with the camera. And it really affects the feel of the game. And it's just one of those things that I never realized until I watched, let's see, there's a video on Journey and the camera for Journey. And how much effort went into that camera, and that it's practically a character by itself, and that we need to treat our camera the same way, and this is part of that. Oh, and there's also a first-person mode. So if you're playing around, you can jump into first-person mode, and it actually does a pretty good job. If you've ever played, was it Mirror's Edge, where you can look down and you can see your body? Yeah, you can actually do that. There's a little bit of clipping for the shoulders, but I'm sure you can fix that with a little bit of work. But yeah, I've spent way too much time playing with that. The major objects are the ALS base character. That is literally the base character object. Your mannequin anim BP, which is most of your animations go there. You have the IK anim BP. That is your post-processing animation, which I didn't even realize was there because it's a tiny little thing on the left, in the corner, in the bottom of like several menus. But after everything else, it will do the IK, and that's the proper place to put it. And I don't think I ever would have figured that out. That was just crazy in depth.
And just for people who may not be as familiar, IK is inverse kinematics, which is kind of where you place feet or hands or whatever within the world, right?
Yes, in this case it's just feet. All it does is it puts your feet on the floor and make sure it stays above the floor. And it does a pretty good job. It looks really good, especially for the mannequin. But remember, he has taken all of his time and made it look good for the mannequin. So you're going to have to take a lot of time to make it look good for whichever character you have. A giant ogre is not going to look nearly as good. When I put these animations into my, I have a female character, a tiny female character, and she's walking around. It just doesn't look right. The mannequin character object, it's a data-only object. If you remember what those are, they don't actually have any blueprints inside them, but you can change the values. It just kind of holds it there so you don't have to change it in the game area every time. But in this case, it has important data in it, that is different from the ALS base character. So probably the first thing you're going to do is to take those changes and put it into the base character so you don't forget those, because I tend to delete that and then I don't have those anymore. So yes, be sure to copy the changes over. Otherwise, it will move your characters will not move exactly like the old character. Okay, lessons learned. Yeah, this was lessons learned. There is a main state machine, and now we're jumping into here. Here is the system. I apologize, my computer is kind of slow. And I'll be able to see my, here it is. Okay.
I like the color coding of the folders, by the way. That's
oh yeah,
I didn't realize you could do that until recently.
He does a really good job about that. Most of this is his, and I'm just kind of following his lead, trying to keep everything separate.
I like how he made the blueprints full
Blue.
Yeah.
Gosh dang it, I want a manila folder.
Really? Come on. All right, here we go. So, another thing is he likes to collapse his nodes down. He does a pretty good job, so if you want to take a look at something, you can drill down in. But let's see, where's my...
And is this kind of out of the box, or is this your implementation of it?
This one is completely out of the box.
Okay.
This is, in fact, I'm looking at the wrong place. But here we go. I need to be in the anim BP. Talking about the state machines. And I'm going to go through and give a quick tour, but I want to make sure everyone sees this. Okay. Here we are. This is the top level anim graph. There's nothing too exciting here, but there is this main state machine. You don't technically need the pose because he only uses it in one place, but that's there so you can fork off your own animations as well and take control. This is just one of those places he's opened up for us. But this is the main state machine. If you want, you can literally just copy this, go back up, and make a new state machine and copy those in. It would take probably about 10 minutes on my computer because it copies everything because they are hierarchical, and this rabbit hole goes down quite a ways. But you could go down, say copy all this, and it would copy the locomotion, the turn in place, get here further.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot like Alice in Wonderland the first couple times you see it. But there's a lot of code here. One of the downsides is that you probably don't want to go above 30 characters on screen at once if you want it to run on a normal computer. That's just what it's been tested at. So NPCs, you might want to switch the NMBP if you have a lot of them in the background, or not have as many, or not use this for the NPCs. All right. And as an example, let me pop down here. This one's mine. You can tell because it's dark and edgy. It's what the kids want, man. To be honest, I was trying to create a spiritual sequel to Vampire Bloodlines. And
I don't think you need to do that anymore.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. It's a dead franchise. No, But yes, I'm excited about it, but I'm still moving forward because I've gotten so far into the story, and I believe mine's different enough that it does not feel like any other vampire story I've ever heard of. But here we are again. Here's the locomotion. I'm going to go up one. Ignore all this stuff. That's not there. And that's going away. But here is the same state machine we saw in the other. If we go in here, you'll see I've added my own state machines for rifle, bat, unarmed. And underneath each of these, if we go far enough, they have this exact same, exact same code. So you can literally just copy and paste and make use of these. And hierarchical state machines are extremely powerful, especially in animation, because you don't want to have everything just on one giant flat blueprint or state machine. This really allows me to conceptually keep things separate.
But if you did want to make a change to one of the things, you'd have to do it in all of those instances, right? It's not a reference to a specific state.
Correct. They are entirely separate. So let's say you wanted to take out the aiming altogether and make it just a brawler, you would have to take out aiming in each. But also you do have the top level where you can make changes there as well. So if you wanted to add something post-processing, or you wanted to change the type of layering of the animations, you can do that there as well. So very powerful, but like I said, the rabbit hole goes pretty deep, and there's a lot to learn. So I have one for each type of movement. In this case, I had a rifle, baseball bat, regular walking, etc. Don't add head turn motions to your animations when you're animating. It looks for you. So in here, let's see if I can pop this up real quick. Bloopers are always fun. Everybody loves these. Come on. All right. There you go. Watch the head. So he literally breaks his neck because it's adding double the double the head turn. So don't be like me. So that, like I said, that's why I have each of those.
But if you wanted to create it's not a layer, but you could remove the root motion of that from your animation, correct?
Yes. It is right there at the top, in fact. That is the first thing the first thing you will see next to the main animation state. Jump over here. Is right here. This is the top level, and here's your main animation, and right here is your aim offset. So because of that, because I have some that have, the arms have to go with them for the aim offset, I have to move that down deeper into the system. And let me know if I'm running over or if I'm too far in the weeds here. I don't know.
I think you're good so far.
Okay, great. This is a big one, and I've seen this a lot on the in Discord. Always create virtual IK bones. When you go through the tutorial on how to hook up a new character to the ALS, and please watch those videos, they are invaluable. They will tell you to create a root bone, just down at your feet, and then one for each foot, and then you will connect those to, I think, the thighs. Always do that. In fact, do that with the basic mannequin. His animations work because he does all of his foot animations with the IK bones. If you use FK bones like I do, your feet will stay stuck to the floor and he will look like he's walking on carpet trying to shock you. Okay, and it's hilarious and it's great, but that's not what you want, and it took me at least a week to figure out what I was doing wrong. And I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. So because it disappeared when I did my own character, because it didn't have the IK bones, so I had to create the virtual IK bones. And so eventually I made the connection, but I did lose time on that. I don't know if that's a bug or not. It might be, but there's a quick and easy fix. It'll take about 5 minutes, and then all your animations will work with your foot placement. Should I use ALS? The pros, it looks very good. And it has multiple movement types, and it makes you kind of ask questions about what kind of movement I want in my game. I think everybody, if we went through here and just asked everybody exactly how movement should work, we're going to get, twice as many answers as we do people, depending on the game. And this has several of those, and it kind of gives you a nice multiple choice. Well, I kind of like a little bit of this or a little bit of that. No, I don't want left trigger aiming, but I do want to go into a fight mode, that kind of thing. The cons. It's more complex than simple blend space and animations. And that means it's going to take more processing power. It's going to take more time to develop and learn. It's going to require more animations for your animator. So please think of the animators. They're people too. And I say that because I'm just learning. The animations are layered. Again, let's jump up to this. Stop that. Stop. You. Stop that. Okay. If we go down 1 or 2, Locomotion. Here we go. There are some additive animations. And when you look at the additive animations, they're just basically going to look like they're hardly doing anything. And it's really just the breathing and a little bit of hand motion. But that's mapped and rotated onto your character. So when he's standing in your idle pose, it actually moves. And it does this in several places. The downside is that you don't know exactly what your animation is going to look like unless you use a montage or you get around that somehow.
So if you had an animation where the character was already breathing, that would be added on top of it, and you get a similar effect with the head turning where it would double up essentially.
Right, and it would look like he's huffing.
Right.
So just one of those things, it's a lot of moving parts. And with a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of ways to stick a wrench in there. Okay, fun time. I wanted to give a quick overview. How are we on time?
About 7:20.
Is that
I,
okay?
It's getting fun, so let's.
Okay,
let's
fun time. Great. Let's see, which one are we at here? Okay, this is the unmodified one. Let's just take a look at the overall hierarchy. The advanced locomotion system is the only directory that you'll have. This I forgot to delete. But you have blueprints and characters, and that's all you care about. I mean, audio is audio, maps, and miscellaneous. That's basically he has some instructions, and that's all those are. So the upside is you're already done with half of your directories. Now, this is one of the most important objects, and this is just a child of that object. If I open this up, this is a data-only copy, or data, what do they call this? A data-only blueprint. And I didn't know this, but you can go here and see only modified properties, and you can see what's been changed. So here you can actually see which values you need to go in and modify. But this one has the mannequin mesh, a few other values like running speed has been changed, sprinting speed, and that does make a difference. So if your guy looks a little bit floaty, or he looks like that's not quite as pretty as the other, make sure that you copied those values in.
Now, just to be clear, when you change this, does this just affect the animation playback, or does this actually affect character speed as well? So if you change the running speed to 2,000, does that double the player speed, or does it double the play rate on the animation? Is that hooked up into the
I think they're the
controller
same.
at all?
I think this goes directly into the controller,
Okay.
the character. But I would have to go back and actually look to be absolutely certain. But I'm pretty certain that's it.
So that's nice. You don't have to worry about changing values in multiple places.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff works really well. When you change something, it does what you expect it to, which in itself is unexpected if you've ever worked with other people's software. The going in here, this is our viewport. Notice that the other has a character. This one does, or has a skeleton, has a mesh. This one doesn't, but everything else is there. It has two cameras, one for the head. One thing I did notice is that there is, let's jump up here. There is a value that says what, head socket or something like that. Camera. All right, come back to me here. We're over here. Socket. Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Let's try that again. Alrighty then. Apologize, I don't know what's going on there. And of course. Well, we can actually look at this. Go back and look at this one then. This first-person camera socket. If you don't put a first-person camera socket or bone in there, it's not going to work right. It's just something that I found, and it's just, you'll get some weird results, especially if you actually try to use the third person. The camera will lag behind. It'll kind of stay in one place for a while and then pop back over arbitrarily. It's a mess, and that's why I bring it up, because, yeah, I'm trying to save you time.
And that's just a socket that it will bind the camera to. Is that
right? But it also works for a bone. You can use a bone in there too.
Gotcha.
So, which is kind of nice. The player let's see, the player graph. We've shown this a couple times. Okay. Wow. This is the input graph. It comes with quite a few events already in there, so be sure to take a look. My computer's slow. All right. Begin play, do every frame, manage character rotation, which is actually a fairly major portion of the code, is just the rotation stuff. It's a lot harder than I suspected. Networked events, which I could just delete. Character events, ragdoll system, camera, all pretty well organized when we get into that.
For ragdoll, does it support resuming animation from ragdoll state?
Yes,
okay.
And it's a lot of fun to play with. Actually, here, I know I haven't actually shown anybody much about this, but let's bring this up real quick. Oh, there we go. There we go. So here we go, and you can just ragdoll whenever you want, and then get back up. It's a lot of fun to play with that. So if you wanted to jump up, do a face plant.
Reminds me a lot of that overgrowth game that had ragdoll physics like that.
I think a lot of this is based off of that talk, the overgrowth guy. Yeah. Yeah. Right, an indie perspective on procedural animation or something like that. It uses a lot of the same ideas. But then since he has more power with the Unreal Engine, being able to use real animations, blend those together. But he does seem to use some of those techniques, so it's pretty neat. Of course, we can that now velocity versus looking, and there we exceeded whatever value it is, and then he'll do the 2-point turn. There's aiming. He goes to over the shoulder mode. One of the first things I do is move that to be closer to the shoulder so you can actually tell the difference. And then put a gun in his hand. It's a lot of fun just to bye. There's unfortunately I don't have my keypad here. I don't know how to tell this guy to follow me around, but it's kind of fun. You can have him follow you around like a duck. And right, that's make sure yeah, that's it. He does that. And that's a pretty good overview of everything. Oh, yes. Everybody wants to see this. There you go. There's your foot IK. Of course, it's giving me fits right now.
The theory behind that would be, even if you're on an uneven surface, one foot would be planted on the mesh in both places in that.
Right. And
so yeah, with that he's not floating above the terrain. He's actually looking at the floor.
Yeah, let's see if I can. So there we go. Oh. But yeah. So when he's behaving, I may have turned it off. Come to think. So, oh, but I know I have it in the other one, but so one of the ways it keeps all the different pieces together and on the same page is by using this ALS interface. So if play get up and BPI, or set walking speed, or set gait, or any of those values change, it can propagate down the line with the same function call. So if you have your own system, say a weapon system that depends on this, then you could just use this interface and add it to the call chain and keep yourself in the loop. So I haven't seen this done anywhere else, but it's a nice way to keep all your different pieces on the same page. Okay. And let's see, jump back to your character. We all know Mr. Mannequin. Your skeleton, your rig, your anim BP, which is probably the most important piece, and your IK, which is fairly simple, but I really haven't messed with it much. It either works or it doesn't. So I haven't had to modify it much. But going in here, the event graph, again, it's pretty clean and collapsed. It gets its references, it sets the default values, and then it does the do every frame function or macro. The interface events are all in one place from that interface, ALS interface. So you know where to go if you want to extend it. I found it really easy to find stuff when I need to, until it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I can't seem to find it. Again, it goes, you have your anim graph, and that goes into a state machine, which goes into an anim graph, which goes into a state machine, which goes into an anim graph, which goes into a state machine, which goes, and then eventually we get down. Yeah, it's fractal, isn't it? It's like the Mandelbrot set. Which is why, I'm glad that everybody has access to this now, because this would take a long time to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never finish it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think you touched on is this may not be a solution for, if you're doing a top-down game or you're never close to a character.
Right.
That would be way overkill for what you needed to do.
Yes. And it also, again, you may not want all your characters to have this. If you're making a game, say, Hitman, and you have like 100 people on the screen, you probably don't want to use this, because they're not going to pay attention to them that closely. Maybe one or two guys close to you, or maybe as soon as someone starts fighting you, you flip over to using that one. Yeah, maybe.
So that's something I haven't played with. Can you on the fly change an anim blueprint for an actor?
I believe so.
So that would be, that's a good way to kind of save performance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interacting with somebody, you can switch over to something that's more detailed, and then say they're 3,000 Unreal units away, you can say, okay, I don't need to be worrying about running this advanced locomotion.
I read an article about the new Days Gone that's coming out for the PS4 that's like these zombies and there's hordes of them. And they said at any given time, like they're on the map, but only when you get close to them does it like the animations like flip over. But it was interesting how they like built it, to keep up with performance and stuff.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
They use something similar like that where it's like hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be sure there's an AI, there's a group AI that is aware of other AIs around it. So be sure to use that as well, because that does make a big difference when you're dealing with crowds.
Do you know why it costs so much? Like, do you know why it caps out at 30? Did the developers say that, or is that your own experience?
This was a discussion we had in the Discord.
Okay.
And I wasn't, I haven't done the test yet, but I have a pretty top-of-the-line machine because I'm doing development. Not this, God no. But if I wanted it to run on something like this, I would probably have to limit it to about 30 or so.
It's usually the processing overhead from having to basically go through all of the different states and calculate everything.
There's a lot of
IK
blending.
is typically a lot of ray casting, right?
I believe that's how it solves most of the time.
Right, IK, but IK is the least of this. The big
That's
thing,
what, you're looking certain ways at objects and stuff.
So you're looking to see where the performance is
at. You wouldn't have to cut off the whole thing, right? You just cut off a little piece.
Blending the animations.
Okay.
When we're here, right here, we have the crouching or normal idle animations. We switch between those. That's not bad. But here we are blending that with an idle additive pose. So, that takes processing for every single bone and every single frame. You are updating that. And
so you're saying that's the performance bottleneck right there?
Most likely. That's where I would look, because in my system. So here's the guy breathing, because he does a lot of that, and that's generally known for being a GPU hog. But here we have locomotion, we have turn in place blending, and then we blend the additive landing, and then we blend it with the idle pose, and then we have the output. And if we go back up, we're blending that with, let's see, go back up to the main state. We're blending that with the aim offset, and we're blending that with, and every time you blend, that's going to cost. And the majority of times, I think, and also a lot of these are blend spaces, which he has a lot of those. And
so what is a blend space compared to like an aim offset?
Excellent question. Let's jump into the animations, since we've pretty much, there's one last thing I'd like to cover while we're in this, and then I'll get back to that. Jump down to this. Here we have our transition rules. And I think we're all, if you're familiar with state machines, you're familiar with the transition rules. What I was not familiar with, there are lots of things over to the left, such as events and notifications that you can set up. So when someone goes through this transition, you can set up a notification or an anim notify or something in order to know when it transitioned and make changes. So you could say, okay, if I put away my pistol, I don't want to immediately let him go back and get that because he just put it there. I'm going to make him wait, a second. And you could set up a timer, and that could be, and you can use that in other places. So that's.
So does that would sit up? So does that send off like an interface call, or does it fire off an event in the character itself, or how does that get handled? How does the event calling happen?
It's a custom blueprint event,
Okay.
So it's going to show up inside your blueprint, and then you can fire it from there. You can fire it off to anywhere.
Gotcha. So it calls an event within the blueprint, the animation blueprint.
Well, you have notifications and events. So you can also do other oh God, no. Okay. But various other notifications. I'm going to have to close some things here.
Until I've been playing C too much because he opened that up and said montage, and I thought it said Monte. Ooh.
Well, the great thing about a montage is that you can do anything in a montage. Okay.
Even Rocky had a montage.
Even Rocky had a montage. Somebody got that. And that's the only thing I think of when I think of montage. That word has no other meaning for me except for world please. So anyway, but there's just a lot of information here on the side that I didn't even know existed. And he makes use of it, especially when he turns, he shoots off a notify, which then plays a montage so that he can get the root motion and actually turn the character. Otherwise, he has root motion turned off for regular animations. I tried just turning it on for everything, and you don't want that. And it does strange and wonderful things. Okay. Now let's jump here. Under animations, again, he's done a pretty good job of organizing. We have our additive poses, aim offsets, getting up, idles, locomotion, etc. Miscellaneous is the only oddball. All it has is a T-pose. And that T-pose is there so you can retarget your character, if you're like me, and use a T-pose. Because some of us actually like to model the underarm, okay? Because that's really hard to do. You thank me later. So, but here. I don't think this was normally here. I think I copied that for some reason. But let's take a look at the locomotion. Just the blend space, left foot, and locomotion F. Okay. The normal locomotion forward.
And to get the sounds, those are done with the anim notifies, right?
Right, and those are inside the animation sequences themselves. I don't think we could always do that, or maybe we couldn't put them in montages, but he has them in both places for various things. So here we can change. Now blend space basically lets us take multiple movements and blend them together fluidly, seamlessly. In this case, so some of these don't make a lot of sense, like up here, that's not going to look right, but for anything that's possible in game, it blends together. And I know you can't see it very well, but there you go. So forward, left, right. I need to turn that off, hold on. Character, bones, there you go. So, and my frame rate's really suffering.
So it's similar to an anim offset. Do you know the exact difference between the two?
The exact difference is that when you look in the animation blueprint, the aim offset will have an input for your current animation and a blend space will not. And literally that's the only difference that I can see, is that it's made for a blend space is a source of animation. You can use it in place of an animation sequence, and you just plop it and then wire it to the output and it works. With an aim offset, you kind of need a master animation to start
More
from.
like a modifier to the...
Right.
Okay.
And yeah, that was a big question for me. So here's my aim offset. Oh, that was the idles, my bad. Aim offset. And here we go. And you can just look around. See? But, one other thing is that he goes a full 180 degrees with his aim offset, which may cause problems for you if your character doesn't spin backwards and shoot like Drake from 1,000 Dragons. And so you kind of keep that in mind, and you might have to speed up the turning so that you never get over that 90 degrees when you're shooting. Again, just something to keep in mind, and hopefully will save you some time. There are a lot of stopping and transition animations. Okay, this is one of, what is this, like 20? And that's stopping. Then we have our turn in place animations and a montage for each of those so that they actually get the turn applied to your character. And your pivots. Can't forget the pivots. Depending on what you're doing, if you want your character to have everything that this has, you are going to have over 100 separate animation files. So if you want the guy to carry a bat versus a crowbar, you're asking for 100 more animation files, at least.
And as part of the ALS, does he include the source FBX files or anything, so you can make modifications to these, or?
No, but you can export them.
Okay.
I export them as FBX now. Some of his crouched animations do not export well, and I think that's related to, was it gimbal lock? Forget what they call it, but and the arms will be turned around backwards, and you'll have to make some modifications on your own. And in the end, for the turn animations, I just ended up making my own. It was simpler. These are short animations. That's the upside. The downside is there are a lot of them, a lot to keep track. And anyone else here use Blender? Yeah. Anyone else here found a good way to keep track of all your animations in a Blender file?
Nope.
Just one big list? Yep. So yeah, I have like 200 animations already in one file, and the only way to get through it is to use naming conventions, so I can do 3 letters and find generally what I need. So if there's anybody actually working to make Blender better, please.
What version of Blender are you running?
I'm still using 7.9.
Okay.
I forgot to mention my stack. Who's the guy with the NASA shirt? Okay. My stack is Unreal Engine, Blender with, Auto Rig Pro and Unreal Tools. Auto Rig Pro for me has been invaluable. I don't normally buy add-ons, especially for Blender, but that's just saved me so much time because it's a nice rig. It lets me retarget from Manuel Bastoni's lab, if anyone's used that to create characters, or it lets you rig a character very quickly. And from there, it has a really nice rig, and then it has really nice tools to export to Unreal with the Unreal skeleton. So just across the board, it's been really helpful to me to get all of my animations out there. And it has some nice features. that get rid of some of the issues exporting from Blender into Unreal.
What's the cost on that?
40 bucks.
40 bucks?
And you'll need to get the Pro version because otherwise it's just the rig, not the export tools. I've tried, and I have it down here, was it the All Right rig, but I don't have much to report because I'm still learning it, and I haven't used it much. Let's see. Okay, that's about what I have there. I actually got a chance to talk to the creator of ALS. His name is escaping me now. It'll come to me in a moment. But there's one part here that really bothered me because I never could gain an understanding of it. Under the locomotion, let's go down deeper under the locomotion, down to moving. There's this, I don't want to call it a monstrosity, but Hydra? But this is when you're running, and you have three major pieces. It's hard to see, but right now we have, up here is your normal motion, down here would be, I'm sorry, here is your normal motion, front and back, and then here would be your movement when you're not looking, when you're doing the velocity versus the looking direction, camera direction. And then here, up here, you have your aiming. Now the aiming is the best part to look at because you can see there are two things that go into the aiming blend space. And looking at them, they're subtly different, but they're generally doing the same thing. And I had no idea why. It's like, why are you taking the time to blend this? Why did you make them? Why did you? And I finally got an answer to that. So for the locomotion blend spaces, they are actually separated in order to have different blend times on the upper and lower body. I know it may seem like a redundancy, but it's more of a visual detail thing. Having them split enables me to blend the feet direction faster than the upper body, so changing directions isn't as jarring. He gets into more, but that's just the kind of thought and effort that he's put into this. Now, if you wanted to speed things up, that's one of the places I would go, and I would get rid of that for characters that are further away than 5 feet. But outside of that, I thought it was pretty cool that he took the time when he found out that I was giving a talk. And okay, that's all I have, but I can answer any questions.